And today's topic is Allen Iverson, who is affectionately known as the Answer. He Allen Iverson walked into the NBA as a 6 foot nothing, 165-pound rookie from Georgetown, and somehow, some way became one of the most unstoppable forces in professional basketball has ever seen. If you told anyone in 1996 that this undersized guard from Hampton, Virginia, was going to redefine what it meant to be a basketball player, most people would have laughed you out of the room. But that's exactly what happened. And today, we are going to break down every chapter of that incredible journey. Before we get into the stats, the highlights, and the moments that made Allen Iverson a legend, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone do something so naturally, so effortlessly, that it's almost looked unfair, like the rules of physics just did not apply to them? That was Allen Iverson on a basketball court. Every single night. The crazy part is, the odds were stacked against him from the very beginning. Growing up in Hampton, Virginia, Iverson faced a level of hardship that most people cannot imagine. His mother raised him largely on her own under extreme, different, difficult financial circumstances. There were times when the family was running low on water, electricity. The environment he grew up in was tough, but rather than being broken by those circumstances, Iverson used them as fuel, that fire, that relentless chip on his shoulder would follow him onto every basketball court he ever stepped on. By the time he reached Bethel High School, it was already clear that something special was developing. Iverson was not just a good athlete, he was a transcendent one. He earned all state honors in both football and basketball. And the conversation around him was not about whether he had a future in sport, but which sport he would choose. Football scouts were interested, basketball scouts were obsessed. And then before his senior year of college could even unfold, a bowling alley incident in 1993 threw everything into chaos. Iverson was convicted of a felony charge related to a brawl, a conviction that many people to this day view as deeply unjust and racially motivated. He spent 4 months in a correctional facility before Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder granted him clemency. The conviction was later overturned on appeal, but those months behind bars at 17 years old left a mark that also revealed something crucial about Iverson's character. He came out the other side more determined, not defeated. He went on to play college basketball at Georgetown University under the legendary coach John Thompson, who became something of a father figure to him. In 2 seasons with the Boyas, Iverson averaged over 20 points per game and demonstrated a level of competitiveness that was off the charts. He was quick enough to embarrass any defender, crafty enough to find angles no one else could see, and tough enough to absorb contact that would send bigger players to the floor. After just 2 years of college, the NBA came calling. In 1996, the Philadelphia 76ers selected Allen Iverson with the first overall pick in the NBA draft. Philadelphia was a city with a famously demanding fan base, a city that does not accept anything less than everything you have got. Looking back, it was a perfect match. His rookie season was an immediate statement. Iverson averaged over 23 points per game, claimed the NBA's Rookie of the Year award, and made it crystal clear that the league had better pay attention. He was a player who played with zero hesitation, zero fear, and absolutely refused to back down from anyone, regardless of size, reputation, or experience. Veterans tried to bully him. It never worked. If anything, it made him better. And Allen Iverson had the answer for anything. Now here is where the story shifts from impressive to absolutely legendary. 2000 to 2001 NBA season, Allen Iverson was on a different planet that year. He led the entire league in scoring, averaging 31 points per game. He also led the league in steals. He won the Most Valuable Player award, becoming one of the smaller players ever to claim that honor. And then he took a Philadelphia 76ers team that on paper had no business being in the NBA Finals all the way to the NBA Finals. That playoff run was one of the most breathtaking individual performances in the history of the sport. Game after game, Iverson was carrying the team on his back, willing them to victories that defied logic. And then came game one of the NBA Finals. The Los Angeles Lakers, at that point, one of the most dominant teams basketball had ever assembled, led by Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Iverson scored 48 points. The Sixers won in overtime. It was one of the greatest individual performances in finals history. The Lakers would ultimately win that series, but that single game moment became permanently etched in NBA history. Nobody who watched it has ever forgotten about it. I remember that series. That was a lot of fun. Iverson was a 4-time scoring champion. Let that sink in. 4 times he was the most prolific scorer in the most competitive basketball league on the planet. He made 11 All Star appearances, 11 times. His peers and the fans recognized him as one of the best players in the game. He was selected to 6 All NBA teams, and his career scoring average of 26.7 points per game places him amongst the highest ever recorded in NBA history. But statistically only tells part of the story with Allen Iverson because what he represented went so far beyond the numbers. He's one of the toughest competitors in NBA history. Iverson was a cultural force unlike anything basketball has seen before. He wore cornrows, he had tattoos covering his arms, he wore his shorts baggy and his jerseys loose. He talked with a directness and an authenticity that the league was not exactly used to hearing, and he did not apologize for any of it. The NBA had a dress code and image expectations, and Iverson simply existed on his own terms. Young people across the country, across the world connected with him in a way that transcended sport. He was not just a basketball player, he was a voice. The crossover dribble, if is one move that became synonymous with Iverson, it is the crossover. He did not just use it to get past defenders, he humiliated them with it. He crossed over Michael Jordan during his rookie season in a moment that instantly became one of the most replayed clips in basketball history. Jordan himself acknowledged it was a brilliant move. When you can make Michael Jordan look momentarily confused, you have achieved something remarkable. And that was the thing with Iverson. He always brought it every night. Later in his career, Iverson had stints with the Denver Nuggets, the Detroit Pistons, and Memphis Grizzlies, before returning for one final chapter with the Sixers, this time in Denver alongside Carmelo Anthony. Exciting, though injuries and roster challenges prevented the pairing from reaching its full potential as his career would wound down. The physical toll of playing every game with maximum aggression had accumulated, and by 2010, his time in the NBA was over. There was also the famous practice press conference in 2002. Iverson sat down with reporters following a tumultuous stretch of the season and delivered a speech about practice. People mock it, people reference it, people debate it. But listening closely, what you actually hear is a man who was exhausted, who was in pain, who was dealing with a deeply personal loss at the time, and who was frustrated with what he saw as misplaced priorities and criticism directed at him. It was complicated like Iverson himself. In 2016, Allen Iverson was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. During his induction speech, he was emotionally grateful and completely himself. He thanked the people who stood by him, acknowledged those who had doubted him, and spoke with the kind of raw honesty that he had always defined him. What makes Iverson's legacy so powerful and so enduring is not just what he accomplished, but how he accomplished it. He played hurt more times than anyone could count. He played against opponents who were bigger, longer, heavier, and supposedly more equipped for the game. And he beat them anyway. Not always by, but enough times to change the conversation about what was possible. He proved that heart, speed, and sheer determination could compete with physical gifts. Every small guard who's played in the NBA since Allen Iverson owes him something. Every player who has ever walked into the arena looking different from what the establishment expected owes him something. The culture of basketball, the culture of sport, the culture of authenticity in professional athletics, all of it carries his fingerprints. Allen Iverson was not just a player who could score. He was a statement, a living, breathing argument that your background does not define your ceiling, that your size does not determine your impact, and that being unapologetically yourself is not a weakness. It is a superpower. Every time someone asks what it looks like to refuse to give up, the answer is always going to be Allen Iverson. That's true. One of the most mentally tough competitors I've ever had the privilege of watching. He did carry that 76er team to the final, even though they lost in five. And I think because Allen doesn't get a championship ring, a lot of people will overlook his greatness. That would be a mistake. This is my salute to the answer. And again, until next time, may your ego come from a place that keeps you humble. I'm Mo Money. Mamba out.